Hello everyone, it's Dawn and welcome back. I am so sorry that I didn't do my yesterday's video. I know I usually do one on a Thursday, but we had a bit of a family crisis yesterday. Nothing major, but it took a long time to deal with, but everything's fine, everyone's okay, thankfully. So I thought, well, so today is Friday, but it's my Thursday because this is the video I would have put up yesterday. And today we're going to be, again, painting in watercolour, as always on this channel. And I'm going to show you how I paint distance. So I've got the most basic of drawing. I'm not even sure you can see me drawing, but you'll see how it transpires as we go along. So, first of all, we are going to do a gradated wash for a sky. And we've done that before on this channel, but I'm going to do it again. So the first thing we're going to do is wet our brush. This is a 1-inch flat brush. And I am just going to wet the sky before putting any paint on it. I'm going to wet the sky right down to the horizon line, just like that. And you might be able to see that I've got tape on my board. I've taped my piece of paper, my watercolour paper, to my board. That's just so that it doesn't move around and it'll give us a nice border. Now I'm going to pick up a fairly hefty dollop. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm only using 5 colours for this. This is cobalt blue. So I'm just going to pick up a fairly thin puddle of cobalt blue on my brush. But what we need to do, we need to make sure we've got enough to do the sky in one brushful. So there we go. Let's hope that that's enough to do it in one brushful. So, and again, hopefully the paper is still wet. It looks like it is, so we should be okay. So we start at the top and we go all the way down. And as the brush comes down, the paint runs out of the brush and the water dilutes it. So if you missed the sky wash tutorial, that is how we do a gradated wash. And before it has a chance to dry, what we're going to do, just wash my brush out for a bit. It's all right, it won't dry for a while. I've got a piece of tissue here, a piece of kitchen towel, and we're going to dab out a few clouds, and I won't go mad this time like I did last time. So just a few. So if we do some biggish ones, not too big, at the top. Now, a little tip, if you change the tissue around and put it on your finger, wrap it around your finger, and just take out some tiny clouds, some smaller clouds down here, not only will that give you some clouds and the smaller clouds and that greater sense of illusion, you're also partly drying your painting, which will make it ready for the next section. Clever, isn't it? So now I'm going to take a number 14 round brush, but any size round brush you've got will be absolutely fine. And what we're going to do this time, we're still going to use that blue, that cobalt blue, but this time I'm going to put a little bit more water on it, make it a bit more puddly. But this time I'm going to put just the slightest bit of cadmium yellow into it, just to make it just a little bit green. Far more blue than green, just a little touch at a time, because it can overpower quite quickly. Let's make a bigger puddle of that because it won't come all the way across. So we're just going to make a very faint puddle of a very watery cobalt blue and sap yellow, silly twit, cadmium yellow, for a nice pale muted green. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to do some, while this is still fairly damp, if you just touch it, if it just spreads a little bit, then it's about right. That's great. And all we're going to do is just some distant hills or distant trees along this horizon line. And if they're muted and soft, even if they're quite large, it will make them look distant. So we're going to carry on doing that all across there while this is still fairly damp. You don't want it soaking wet for this, but just a little bit wet. So there you go. You've got a nice pale distance. But just in case you can't see that, because I can't see what you can see from here, because again, we've got a beautiful day. The sun is pouring into my screen and I can't see what you can see. So just in case you can't see that, for the purposes of the video, I'm going to make it just a little bit stronger. Well, that might make it a bit better. So just for the purposes of the video, I am going to make it a little bit stronger, but you might not want to make it as strong as this. This is just so that you can see it. So we're not going to be too precise. We're just going to dab and scrub, if you like, make it slightly bigger at the end. So I think that's probably, that's fine. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So now what we've got to do, I've divided these into individual fields, and I'm going to take a smaller brush for this. This is a number 6 round, and again I'm going to take a cadmium yellow like that, and I'm just going to, this puddle that we've already made, I'm just going to put it into that. So we still need this, we're still more blue than yellow because this is still quite distant, this is still right at the back, so we're still more blue than yellow. So we're going to mix those puddles together, and we want this fairly wet, so just take a little more water, make it nice and puddly, so you've got a very muted green, maybe even a bit more blue than that. Yeah, that's fine. So more blue than yellow for this one, because we need to have it pale. We'll move on to other colours in a minute, and we're going to put this big field in here. So nice and pale. So here we go. I'll just pick up a bit more paint. I could have used a bigger brush, but this will do. In fact, do you know what? I am going to use a bigger brush, otherwise we'll be here all day. So I'm going to change to a larger brush, but you can use any brush that you've got, or the brushes that you're familiar with using. You don't have to use the same size brushes that I'm using. It won't make any difference to your painting. So there we go. So that's a nice muted background there, and in a minute, when we've filled these in, we're going to put some dividing lines with some small trees. And then in this field here, there's a little one here, and I think we will switch back because it's a smaller field. We're going to pick up a little bit of, this is sap green, so a little bit of sap green, and again, we're going to just put that into that mix. We're not going to change it much. We're just going to put that into that mix and add some water. I've got my water bucket. This is my water bucket here. So we're just going to maybe just a little bit more yellow to make it a little bit paler. Maybe a touch more. So just keep on adjusting it until you're happy with the colour. The problem with putting too much blue in it at this stage, it's going to go too dark, and we don't want it too dark. So that'll probably be enough for that. We'll soon find out. And we're going to paint that into there. So we don't want the fields all exactly the same colours. We want them slightly different and very pale, or reasonably pale anyway, just to give them some interest. So we'll pick up a little bit more. So that's that one there. Now this one this little triangular field here, now that's a little bit closer to us, so we're going to make that up a little bit stronger. And this time what we're going to do, we're going to pick up some yellow ochre. That's yellow ochre. Oh, that's quite a thick colour, so we need a bit more water. Oh, not quite that much. That's all right. Pick up some yellow ochre. And again, we're going to put some sap green into it, just to make it a bit of a different colour. So we'll just pick up a little bit more from that puddle and a little bit more sap green, just a little bit at a time. We don't want to overpower it. So there we go. Let's see what that one does. A bit more green, I think. And if you want it a bit brighter, add a little cadmium yellow. So you just keep on adjusting the colour until you're happy with it. There are no rules, it's your painting. If you want it a different colour, you just jolly well go ahead and do that. So that's still quite pale, still quite watery. So just add water. Don't add white to whiten it, to lighten it. Just add water. Like that. Because adding white will make it go very chalky. And it might even change the colour as well. So that's nice and pale. Now what we're going to do, this strip here is a cornfield. So we're going to make that a little bit brighter. What we're going to do with that one, we're going to have a little bit of cadmium yellow. So we want this fairly bright, but still quite watery, still quite pale, because it's still sort of mid-distance, but a little bit stronger this time. And we're going to take a little bit more of that yellow ochre, and we're going to mix the two together. Not too bright, we don't want it glaring, right? Maybe just a touch more cadmium yellow. That'll do, I think. I think that'll do for a mid-distance cornfield. I think that'll be absolutely fine. Yep, that's fine. All right, just wash the brush out a little, and that's fine. So that's going to wash, I could have picked up a bit more, right across there. And again, what I'm going to do is change over brushes and get a bigger brush. So I'm just picking up that same puddle of paint that we've just had there for our cornfield. I'm not mixing up anymore, I'm just picking up a bigger brush, just to get the job done a bit quicker. There we go, there is our nice cornfield. So that's coming on quite nicely. And now what I'm going to do, I am going to use this little brush this time, and I'm going to mix up some darkish green, and I'm going to do that using 3 different colours. I'm going to start off, I'm going to put it straight into that mix of cadmium yellow and yellow ochre. I'm going to put in just a spot, to begin with, of cobalt blue. That's wonderful. And then I'm going to wash my brush out a bit, and I'm going to pick up some sap green, a little bit more sap green, I think. Yeah, oh, that's lovely. Lovely dark. We don't want it too dark, maybe just a tiny bit darker. That's fine. And what we're going to do with this, again, we're going to keep it reasonably wet, but not soaking wet. We're going to keep that puddle of paint there. And what we're going to do here, where these dividing lines are for the fields, we're just going to touch it like that, and we're going to dab. We're not going to do that. We're just going to dab on for the trees and the divisions, but we're going to keep it reasonably small. We're not going to do great big globs. So just pick up a bit more paint. So paler and smaller as we go to the back of the field, and you can get away with making it darker as it comes nearer the front. So I've lost my lines. Oh, there we go. That's the trouble when it dries, you can't find your lines. So smaller and paler at the back there, and you can get away with bringing it bigger and slightly bolder as we come nearer the foreground, or nearer to the middle distance. So just do a few blobs and squiggles to represent trees and bushes. Blobs and squiggles, that's another technical term for you. And then we've got this row of this division here, this hedge row here. So all I'm doing really, with the point of my brush, I am just stippling. So hold your brush up fairly vertically and just stipple. And as you can see here, you've got a bit of bleeding because it was still a bit wet, but don't worry about that. Just paint it over and bring it into your field. That's no problem whatsoever. There's nothing in watercolour we can't resolve once you know the tricks. Okay, it changes the colour a little, but that's okay too. It's your painting. So the only thing I'm going to do now is the first thing I'm going to do actually is just make that division line up here just a bit more pronounced. So not too much because it's still fairly distant. And the only other thing I'm going to do is we're going to pick up a slightly darker and bolder, because this is nearer the front. So we need a bit more cobalt blue straight in there with our sap green, and a bit of yellow ochre to mute it down a bit. So this is going to change the colour, which is okay, that's fine, that's what we want. We want some interest in our painting. And what we're going to do here, along where our field is, our cornfield, we're just going to paint some darker trees. And again, I'm going to stick with this brush for the time being, so just paint along and dab, because you don't want this to go up too high because you won't see the cornfield otherwise. So just paint along and dab in odd places to create bushes among the hedgerow. So we're going to keep on doing that right the way along. So it's ever so easy. There's no specific techniques here. You just do what I do, make it up as you go along. So there we go. That's the distance sorted out. Now the rest from here, don't blink because you'll probably miss it. Now from here on, we're going to do this big, oops, that's all right, don't worry about that. We're going to do this big stretch of grass, and I'm going to use my large round for that. And again, I'm going to pick up some paint, some cadmium yellow, and I'm going to put that in this corner. And I'm going to pick up some blue, some cobalt blue. So we're going to mix our green. We don't want it too dark, but we do want it quite bright. And I'm going to pick up some sap green as well. Oh, not quite that much. That's all right. No, oh, that's lovely. Yep, like that. So just make sure we've got enough to cover that area. We should have. And we're not going to pre-wet it this time. So as you can see, that colour is a lot stronger. So, because it's right at the front. So we're just going to keep filling that area. We're going to use our nice, and I have got a line there. That line is just a guideline, because I'm going to put right in the foreground in a minute. That's going to be the last thing we do. We are going to put some nice tall grasses in, some bushy grasses, just to bring that foreground right to the front. So we're just going to finish off doing this right down to the tape, and we'll take the tape off when we're done. Hopefully it won't be a disaster, but you never know. So there we go. There is our painting almost finished. And what I'm going to use for this one, I am going to use a fan brush. Now, if watercolour fan brushes, to be honest, aren't usually very helpful for this because they're far too thin. So I would recommend using an acrylic fan brush. So that's what I'm using. This is a lot thicker than your watercolour fan brush. And for this, what you need to do, you need to dip it in. I'll just bring my bucket over. You need to bring it in like that. And then what you need to do, you need to squeeze it with your fingers and your thumb. Or you can just dab it out. Just dab the excess out on a tissue like that, on a piece of kitchen roll. In fact, that might be easier for you. And we're going to mix up some dark green. This is just a bit of it. In fact, we could even use this green we've got here. You don't need to mix up anything new. This is just a bit of indulgence. You don't have to do this. This is just really to finish off the painting. So we'll just mix it up nice and bright. Make sure we've got enough. We don't need much. And just in this left-hand corner here, you don't have to do this. We're just going to flick up for some long grasses, just to bring the foreground right to the front. And what you can do with this brush, I'll just wash it out again. And again, we're just going to dab it out on our tissue, like that. What you can do, I'm just going to bring in my palette here, just a little trick. If you want to, you can double load it, which means you load half of it with green, like that. Just sweep it backwards and forwards like that. But with the other half, you're going to load it with red. So this is a little bit of cadmium red, neat cadmium red. And hold it so that the red is at the top, like that. And what we're going to do, over here in this bank of grass, if we just dab, you get little streaks of grass, but at the same time, you get some flowers. So you're painting grasses and flowers in one go. So there you go. So there's my tip of the day. If you come up a bit higher, some of these flowers will come above that grass bank. So there you go. That's all we're going to do for today. That's your lot for today, as they say. So there's our painting distance in watercolour. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you found this little technique with the fan brush. You can do it with a flat brush as well if you want to, but fan brush is great for creating shapes and other bits and pieces rather than just a flat brush. So I do hope you found that useful and that you've enjoyed it. And let's just do the magic before we stop. And next week, in fact the next couple of weeks, we are going to be painting a very popular subject, which seems to be very popular in watercolour. We are going to be tackling painting trees. So next Monday, when you come back, I will be starting a 2-week little mini-series, if you like, of painting trees. So we're just going to take the tape off so that we've got a nice border all the way around here. So what we need to do when we put our tape on, just dab it on your clothes a couple of times to take the sticky off. So there we go. There is our distance painting. And using a fan brush, or as I say, you can use a flat brush to do a few tricks with flowers in our grasses. So I do hope you've enjoyed that and found it helpful. And if you're enjoying these videos and liking them and finding them helpful, please do give us a thumbs up. Add any comments you'd like to below. And please, if you haven't already, do consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell, and you'll never miss a new upload. And so I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Sorry it's a day late. I hope it's been worth it. I'll see you on Monday with the first of our series on painting trees. So in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, everybody. Have fun. And as always, happy painting. Bye-bye for now.